On this episode of Ethical Exits, we sit down with someone who's rewriting the playbook on what business can be, Brenna Davis. CEO, board director, and best-selling author, Brenna leads Organically Grown Company, the largest independent organic produce distributor in the U.S., a 9-figure B Corp. But what really makes Brenna stand out is how she's championing a radically different ownership model, the Perpetual Purpose Trust. It's a structure that keeps companies grounded in mission, not just in margins, and it's inspiring a wave of change from Patagonia to the next generation of impact-driven founders. We talk about resilience and leadership, the power of steward ownership, and why business has to be both regenerative and joyful if we want to build a future worth handing down. Plus, Brenna shares some insights from her new international best-selling book, Leading Through Fire, a guide for anyone navigating complexity while staying true to their soul. This one is equal parts strategy, inspiration, and some punk rock energy, and it's with one of my favorite people. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ethical Exits, where we break down everything about M&A for Triple Bottom Line, Profit for Purpose Company. I'm your co-host, Hannah, and I'm joined by Caitlin Corrigan, my colleague from across the way in South Carolina. And today we have another fantastic guest. I can't believe the guests that we're getting, Caitlin. It's wild, right? So today is definitely a superstar. Brenna Davis is the CEO, board director, and best-selling author known for transforming business into a force for regeneration. She leads the largest independent organic produce distributor in the U.S., operating under one of the nation's earliest Perpetual Purpose Trust ownership models. And she's redefining how companies can be structured to serve life. So welcome, Brenna, the CEO of Organically Grown Company.
Thank you, Caitlin. Great to be here.
I know. This is amazing. We're so much looking forward to this conversation today. So thanks for being here, Brenna.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm a fan of your podcast and I really enjoyed listening to it. And happy to get into this conversation.
Dope. Well, I certainly want to share that Brenna just came out with a book. Hopefully you can all see that. It's a #1 bestseller, international bestseller, Leading Through Fire, Resilient Leadership for People, Planet, and the Future. And it's a guide to help leaders navigate the polycrisis, as you define it, which I've actually never heard that term before, while tending to the soul, reclaiming joy, and building a positive future for generations to come. So we'll get into a little bit of that. Brenna, loved your book. Both Caitlin and I read through it before we jumped on with you. It's brand new. I actually went to your release party, which was that was my first release party.
Wasn't that fun? It was it was so fun to have you there, Hannah.
Dude, are you kidding me? Brenna came out with these sparkly boots. Okay, if you've never met Brenna in person, you have to find a way, right? She came out in this sparkly boots and sparkly outfit, and your personality was just radiated, and everybody in the room was so cool, and they're all there for you. So that what you've cultivated through your life, Brenna, kudos to you, man. You are a success. If there is only one way that you look at it, if success is defined by the people that surround us and support us, girl, you're doing it.
Oh, thanks. So I just feel so lucky to know that people have met and cultivated relationships with the people I know. And it was just so fun to have you in the room that night. And I think, every single person in that room and the people in my life are doing these amazing things to make to help make the world better. And those are the people I like to be around. But I also like to have a lot of fun. So I wear the boots and I'm just so lucky that that I have that in my life and that I've got to meet some wonderful people.
Yeah, some people that have buoyed you, right, and supported you through all these changes and transformations. And Organically Grown Company is not a small operator, right? I mean, this is a 9-figure business, right, Brenna?
So. Yes, it's a 9-figure business. It was founded in 1978 by a bunch of hippies and earth mamas and freaks, they call themselves. And that generation really wanted to get back to the land. And they realized there were many of them that were getting back to the land, and they were all going to the same co-op to sell their organic produce. And they thought, we probably shouldn't be competing against each other. So they created this incredible co-op. And so OGC started from this co-op in Eugene, and has been through several rounds of different type of ownership, including an ESOP. And now today serves customers up and down the West Coast and into the inland US, like Montana and Idaho, bringing organic produce to mostly independent retailers and other retailers as well. But really supporting and bolstering the co-op movement is kind of our core work.
Amazing. Well, we love Earth Mamas here at Ethical Exits.
I do too. I'm a big fan of Earth Mamas.
Hell yeah. I mean, I went to U of L, right? So, like, my roots are in Eugene. So, like, I feel like I'm around my people, you know?
Oh, you know it. And the Freaks, I just want to shout out to the Freaks. Now, for those who don't know, the Freaks are like the rock and rollers that weren't hippies.
Yeah.
And I feel like I kind of probably am in more of the freak category, but my mom
Yes.
was definitely in the Earth Mama category and continues to be. So I kind of maybe am a bridge of all those groups.
You're totally one of those freaks. I could see you in like all black, like going to rock concerts, like 100%.
Yeah,
I can see that, Brenna. Yeah.
The only reason why I'm not wearing black today is because it doesn't show up well on camera.
Oh shoot! They're calling me out because I'm wearing black. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Just saying, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. Don't wear black because no one will see you on camera.
Oh, funny. Okay, so let's get into that because that's one of the questions we love to ask at Ethical Exits is, what makes people who they are, right? What motivates and what values or moral character or things that are important to us make us into executives like you, Brenna, where you've done work in these spaces forever, right? So we always like to ask not only what values guide you most deeply and how they have shaped you personally, professionally, but why those values are important. What happened? What transpired? What in your young life or any of those core memory moments where that value was instilled in you and it's core to who you are?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I was just I really loved spending time in nature, and I really loved trees and watching plants and animals, and I was really played a lot in a this is in the Pacific Northwest. I got to play
Yeah.
in kind of the forest a lot, and one day that forest was torn down, and it was just like roots and brown earth, and none of those plants or trees. I mean, everything was gone, and I asked my mother about it. And she told me, well, that's just like developers. That's what they do. They just build houses. And so just from a really young age, I mean, I probably was 8 or 9. I try to remember, but probably 7 actually. But just from a really young age, I was really interested in how to preserve and protect nature. And it's funny, I went through all these iterations in my life of things I was interested in, but ultimately I ended up studying environmental science at Western Washington University. And then I've always been interested in this intersection of how do businesses make the decisions they make? What motivates them? And so my first my internship was in an oil refinery because I thought I need to go in there and really learn and understand like why they're making decisions. And I was not a popular environmental science student, let me tell you. An internship in an oil refinery, but I learned a lot. I really did, and a lot about language too, which we won't get into in this podcast. But you call it environmentalism, I call it conservation. Yes. Where's the intersection? But anyway, I ended up working in 7 different industries, from like $20 million companies all up to like $200 billion multinationals doing consulting. And then ultimately landed in the space that I love, which is the food space, working at PCC Community Markets on their executive team. They have incredible product and ingredient standards, incredible activism that they do, and then ultimately came to lead Organically Grown Company.
Amazing. There's so many intersections of what you just said there. I can imagine you said your mom was an Earth Mama, so maybe she was okay with you going to get your degree in Earth Science. But how are you going to make money from that? Like, how's that going to like support you, right? But I love that you were always kind of curious about how for-profit companies, right, think about this and how they make decisions. I come from a similar background, and that was like actually one of the epiphanies I got after talking to John Abrams, the co-founder of South Mountain Company, because he talks about cooperative organizations helping citizens become more participatory in democratic systems, right? When you're asking employees to participate and to cooperate with one another, which you talk a lot about in your book too, as being really critical, especially in challenging business environments.
Yes.
And that I was a poli-sci major, right?
Oh, fantastic. Right? That's wonderful. Yeah.
So the same thing is like, how do we make decisions? How do we work and live together, right? And how do we lift everybody up? And that's politics, but it's also politics is like a small microcosm of a business,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's a lot of the same systems, power structures, right? So how do we make it work for everybody, right? Is always what I've been really curious about. So I love that has kind of been the same path, but from a different educational background than mine. So super cool. That makes so much sense. And I can see how beautifully you've woven that through your life. And I love the curiosity of let me just go into that, let me go over there and see how they think
let's
and
go
how they
there.
work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Because there's this idea, there's this conversation around impact and where you make it. Do you make it on the inside or do you make it on the outside? And of course, it takes both, right? So I think about Sea Shepherd, right, where they're like ramming whaling boats, right?
Yes.
They're on the outside, right? They're activists, right? They're doing it, right? And then you have Greenpeace, who shows up in boardrooms and are suited, right? So it's different influences. How do we get to where we want to be? And I really love the openness to understand how the other side is thinking and the language they're using. I think that's really beautiful. Transitioning back to organizational structure, this is something that we really wanted to talk about. You are the second CEO of a business that is in an employee-owned trust. So the first one we spoke to a couple episodes ago, Marin Oka from Oka Aquatics. She runs a swim school out of Miami, and they transitioned to an EOT. And I think it's like one of the hottest things in purpose right now is in purpose and impact businesses is the Perpetual Purpose Trust. And there's no bigger company that is a B Corp that we all know, and everyone knows that they came out with this, and that was Patagonia, right? They released a whole one-page ad in the New York Times, and they said Earth is now our shareholder, and it was just like, what does that even mean? How does that even work, right? But my understanding is that Organically Grown Company is the OG of this. Like, this was, you guys like came up with this model. You were way ahead of the curve. You're so intentional, so authentic in your pursuit to do more and to really get to your core purpose and preserve that over time. So can you talk a little bit about that? I know, from my understanding, Brenna, you came in after that Organically Grown had made this transition from an ESOP, as you mentioned earlier. But can you talk about that? Like how did that even happen from your understanding of how they brought that model to life?
Yeah, it is true that OGC is one of the original sort of businesses that transitioned to a perpetual purpose trust, and definitely at the time one of the largest. What a perpetual purpose trust is the business is being held in a trust. And when you think about trusts, a lot of times people think about like a family trust, like the Rockefeller Trust. Okay, that family trust exists to advance the Rockefellers' well-being and
legacy.
Initiatives. And okay, so a perpetual purpose trust is a trust held in perpetuity to meet a purpose. And so in the family trust, it's to help the family, but in a purpose trust, it's to advance a purpose. And this motto was used a lot for several things originally. One of which was graveyards. Like cemeteries were often protected in perpetual purpose trust for obvious reasons. You want to make sure that your loved one is protected. Parrots and pets were often perpetual purpose trusts were created for pets to, like, if your parrot was going to outlive you,
right? Which a lot of them do.
You sure wanted Polly to have her cracker for in perpetuity as long as she's alive, right? So so the perpetual purpose trust being applied to business is relatively novel. And OGC here's how it happened. I mean, you can talk to Natalie Reitman White and David Lively and many of the other people at OGC, and they'll tell you first. And actually, Matt Morocek, who for a while was well, I was going to say was the trustee, but anyway, incredible work that they did together. There's so many people to name, Peter Curler, it goes on and on. Okay, I'll get out of that. But we were in a situation where we had to exit an ESOP. And, with ESOPs, as the valuation grew, there's a lot of regulatory aspects of it. And we were in a situation where we knew our founders who held large shares in the ESOP would need to exit. And we also were in a situation where the ESOP was getting more and more challenging for us to administer. And so we were thinking long term about what model might help us move to a different model. And also, we didn't want to sell, or take on predatory VC that would sort of put us in a position where we couldn't pursue our mission anymore, which really is to advance the organic movement and to support growers and support the community and to build people's health. And so, we actually, Natalie Reitman-White went to a conference and came back and had heard about this and said, "Hey, this Perpetual Purpose Trust, we could do this." So we decided to do it. There was a lot of work done with a lot of lawyers.
Big firm expertise, values-driven impact. At Impact GC, we've traded the traditional law firm playbook for one built on purpose and trust. As a pending B Corp, member of 1% for the Planet, and certified carbon neutral law firm by We Are Neutral, we help mission-driven businesses grow, protect their purpose, and lead with confidence. We're here to make the complex simple and the legal work human. Let's build what matters. Visit impactgclaw.com to learn more.
And then we set out to try to raise the money for the Perpetual Purpose Trust. But before that, we had to find a trustee. And trying to explain to a bank what a Perpetual Purpose Trust was at that time was like speaking Spanish to a Finnish speaker. It just literally, or maybe the Finn spoke Spanish, I don't, but literally it did not compute. Okay. And so, so it was really, really hard to find a trustee. The other obstacle they had to overcome was convincing investors to, invest in this when, this model was relatively unfounded in this space and relatively new, novel in this space. And so we really had to work hard to find investors. And luckily, we found RSF, which helped give us a loan. And we found Natural Investments, who's now a Perpetual Purpose Trust also, that helped us get connections with investors. And Peter Curler worked diligently on all that fundraising. There are many, many moments in the story where it may not have happened. It was a hero's journey, truly. And since we've been able to transition to a Perpetual Purpose Trust, we know that more than 50, close to 100 companies have followed suit, including Patagonia, who we supported in some ways, not always, but we shared, open sourced our documents to support them in their work. So, and we're continuing to do that. We're one of the original co-founders of Perpetual Trust Ownership Network. Now there's enough businesses to have a network. It's really exciting. So, a lot going on in the space, but it really did take a ton of courage, a lot of guts, a lot of fortitude, and a lot of lawyers and fundraisers to make it happen. But yeah, that's the story of the trust.
Yeah, help me understand too. We're learning a lot about employee ownership structures, right? We've been on this journey, Brenna. It's been kind of cool, right? Because it's so organic. Our learning, like we're just kind of curious people. We've been talking about how you can sell or buy a company, how you can succeed, or find an exit that's ethical, right? Like how can M&A be a force for good is like our main thing that we've been exploring because it's so under leveraged. Only 5% of transactions are mission driven. Right?
Yeah.
And we know what predatory capitalism looks like.
Yes.
Where's the activist capitalism? What does that look like? That's
right.
That's really what we're exploring. And from our understanding, we actually haven't had anybody on the podcast, I don't think, Caitlin, keep me honest here, that's an ESOP yet. We have some planned.
Nope, not yet.
But we understand that we've done a whole podcast on what happened with New Belgium and their ESOP story.
I listened to that. It was great.
Thank you. Which is really sad. You talked about, you just echoed some of what happened with them is you started with the best intentions, right? You're trying to find ways to provide equity and ownership to your employees, which is very, very noble purpose and cause, to try to raise the floor of economic empowerment for everybody. Right. And that is such a problem today, of course, with just the disparity between the 1% and those who have not. And it's only getting worse. Right. And so that was novel. You try to do that. But as all the complications of an ESOP. But as you transition to an EOT to protect your purpose and to make sure that it cannot be sold. Right. Which is another thing I understand is an ESOP is transferable. right? So if you
Yes.
came under pressure for whatever reason to sell, and there's always reasons why good people need to sell, right? Like you said, there were some people who were transitioning out. People need to do something different. People need to retire at some point, right?
Yes.
Like, these things happen, but then whoever buys you can then dissolve the ESOP, right? Can take away all the employees' equity. So my question, long setup to this, but with your structure, with your EOT structure, do your employees still own equity? Are they still considered employee owners in an organically grown company?
Yeah, well, we're calling the movement steward ownership or perpetual or purpose trust ownership, because there's employee owned trust is actually sort of a misnomer. It should be more, the name should, I forgot what Peter was calling it. Oh gosh, Peter had a great LinkedIn post, but employee-owned trusts and perpetual purpose trusts are the same. They're trusts that exist to serve a purpose. In the case of an EOT, it's for coworkers or it's for employees. And so in some of those cases, like you heard at the swim school, they have like really great structure, but nobody owns the trust, right? And it's the same way with PPTs. The trust owns the trust. It's not employees owning it. And so for us, it's more employees don't own the trust, but in our structure we have a profit waterfall, and the profit waterfall is that we make sure we pay our debts, we make sure we reinvest in the company, we make sure we pay our dividends. Then we do a 20% profit share to all coworkers, and every coworker gets the same amount based on their tenure, not based on their title. So it's really great, a really great benefit for folks. And then we share our profits with the community. And we also have a built-in profit share where we give 2% of our total profits back to to planet and people in our communities. So that's kind of how we've done it. And most companies do not share that much of their profit with their coworkers, and so that's an important thing. But I'll also point out that I'll wait. I was going to get into our trust structure, but employees also can vote to our stakeholders, and they can vote to elect the folks that oversee the trust.
So there's aspects of a flat decision making or cooperative. Let's use that.
It's cooperative. Yep.
Yeah, cooperative decision making structure, and all your employees also benefit equally, which I also love, based on tenure, right? Rather than role in your success. Amazing.
Absolutely, yes, it's true, and we, our culture is really one of consultation and of engaging each other in decision making, and really people that come over to work for us are kind of like, we ended up just telling them a disclaimer. We are going to ask you about things more than you're used to. You're going to be voting on more things. We're going to be discussing things more proactively. We're going to give you the strategic plan elements and say, what do you think? Is this the right direction? And so for some people, it's a little disorienting, but others, it's quite refreshing.
Oh yeah,
I sorry, I want to jump in here just for the listeners too. The way that you've structured this EOT model, this is just for OGC, correct? Like, this isn't how every single PPT has to be organized, right? You can really kind of orchestrate it however you want, just as long as, like, profits can still be revisited and distributed, but always with the mission in mind. So you have like 20% profit share by tenure, not title, but then giving back 2%. To a charity or, to the planet, or, whatever your cause is.
Yeah, purpose trust. I think your question is our structure have to be what everyone else does for steward ownership?
Correct.
No, actually, there are many different styles of purpose trusts. There are some newer purpose trusts that their structure is really more simplified than ours, or they have different profit share models, or they don't have voting, but they have consultation. So really, for business owners, you can design the purpose trust, whether it's focused on coworker or employees or whatever it's focused on. But you can design your purpose trust in a way that works for you and for your business, and it doesn't have to be super complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That I think Marin also echoed that. That's one of the reasons that she really liked it. And
Mm-hmm.
you kind of touched on this too. The administrative costs of maintaining an ESOP are significant, right? Like we've heard average costs of up to $1 million a year just to manage and maintain an ESOP structure, because you have to have the business evaluated every year, right? And for the
Yes.
stock price to be reset. So what does that look like, Brenna, in contrast to an EOT for folks who may be considering those two options?
Yeah, I think it depends on the complexity of your
Okay.
purpose trust, but it is much less.
Okay.
It
Excellent.
might cost you more, and I mean, I don't know, initial lawyer's fees and setting it up. Now it's a lot easier because there are a lot of models to copy, and the field is growing. I mean, there's a freaking conference now, pretty exciting. So this is, this field is growing. There are a lot of practitioners now that can, or there are many practitioners now that can support, and there's still growing awareness within the legal community. So the lawyer that you consult might not know about it, but others do. And the Perpetual Trust Ownership Network can connect you with those folks.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay. Well, transitioning a little bit to navigating complexity and resilience. When we met the first time, and I told you, I was like, I had heard about you guys forever. I knew you were local. I'm right here in Portland. You're in Portland.
Yeah.
You're from Eugene, and I'm like, but I was intimidated. I was like, but they're too cool. And
oh my gosh, no! Don't be intimidated.
But I guess you guys are so significant in this space. You're really the trendsetter. So I don't know. I had some consternation, but thankfully we moved past that, and we got in touch. But one of the things that you said on that first call that I was so moved by, and I repeated a couple times in different spaces, is your sense of calm, right? I think you said, like, in relationship to everything that's going on, right? All these forces, all this chaos that's going on every single day, right? If you try to pick out some headlines, it would change dramatically day to day, right? All this stuff that's going on. You've built a business where you said, like, Hannah, we're not worried. We're not worried at all. We don't feel under pressure to change the way that we're doing business. We don't feel under pressure that we can't maintain growth, or we can't find new ways to build our resilience. And you talk a lot about that in Leading Through Fire, right? In your book, you talk about all the components it's really a guide. I think you could use it for people who aren't even in leadership, right? But for people who are in leadership, what does resilient leadership look like? What are the components of making a company that's feels comfortable, right?
You didn't start your business just to sell something. You started it to solve something. But solving big problems with limited resources, it's slow, it's hard. And in a market moving this fast, values need more than vision. They need velocity. This is the kind of challenge Up and Over Advisors was born to solve. We help mission-driven companies scale smarter through values-amplifying acquisitions. Because when ethical founders grow, capitalism gets an upgrade. We do the heavy lifting to find and qualify companies ready to partner or sell to someone like you. We don't just close deals, we open doors to broader impact. Ready to scale yours? Let's build the future on purpose. Visit upandoveradvisors.com to learn more.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember that conversation. I'm glad that you. No, I remember the conversation, but I'm trying to remember exactly what I said. I'm going to say I don't remember. I remember it very well. But I think one of the things that I've been focused on for myself, and then me and the leadership team have been focused on, and the kind of leadership at OGC is how do we stay steady? But what a perpetual purpose trust does, what the structure does, is allow you to focus on the purpose, and it's keeping you focused on that. Of course, you have without profits, there's no mission, and so. But what we're doing our business in a way that doesn't have to be extractive, but it's just this idea of having that trust model as sort of a space to work within. Has given us a degree of focus and steadiness.
Mm-hmm. It guides you on what to do next, right? Like you're not starting from scratch every time. right?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
The trust, exists to advance sustainable food systems. And there are 10 principles in our trust ownership that we're working towards. And we are every day thinking about that in our strategic planning and how we show up with our coworkers, how we show up in our community,
Yeah.
how we show up for each other.
Yeah. Does that make your job easier? Because you, it was like the CEO.
No.
I mean, or does it not? I mean, I think in a way it could, because you're not reinventing Organically Grown Company every quarter. You're not finding new, you know what I mean? Like whole scale, like what the North Star is, right? So, and you're a cooperative kind of Kaizen, as you talk about in your book, right? The Kaizen model, where anybody can come to you with ideas or suggestions on how to improve things, right? It doesn't matter, right? You're open door that
We're
way. You
very open to that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You encourage that, and you have that process built in. So it's like you're not alone, and this North Star is fixed, right? So I think that kind of helps to like reduce some of the complexity, but maybe I'm naive about that. I've never run a
Ask me. It
nine-figure
depends on
business.
the day you ask me. But no, it does. It does create. It does. There's a built-in purpose trust, and we are purpose, and we have conversations sometimes with the board about, on occasion we've talked about, is this like how will this fly in 50 years? We're making
Yeah.
decisions about an acquisition, and a lot of businesses only think, the next quarter.
Yeah.
So
Next earnings.
yeah, or the next earnings. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so it is, and it's also a sense of wanting to preserve it for the next generation of folks coming in. And how do we bring the next generation up? How do we honor the elders that kind of helped to create this and bring their wisdom into the whole thing? And how do we keep it holistic in a place that people want to continue to work and continue to grow in? So that complexity is not always easy, but I will say that we have to run a really good business.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We do the fundamentals of running a great business. We work really hard every year to make that happen. We work really hard to show up for our customers and show up for each other, and really have a quality product that people can rely on. So this esoteric stuff matters, and it's really important. And we run a great business.
Fantastic.
I think that's a good leadway into our next question too. And I think you've answered some of this already, but you've built this business where people, your employees, they stick around. You have this kind of familial relationship with one another. You're very close. Your profits are shared, and your mission with the PPT is non-negotiable. And what advice would you give founders that want to scale their impact without selling out? Because Hannah and I have been talking to some founders recently, and they've said, time and time again, they feel like they don't have a way out. They feel like they only have a few slew of choices. None of them really will, help with succession planning and will help with their legacy and help, protect the employees that help build their company. And I'm sure that, a lot of stuff that you talked about in your book too, where you say, adopt purpose as a leader, have courage, have compassion. All of these things is what's built this kind of ecosystem for this beautiful business that you've cultivated. But is there anything else that you would, tell founders that they can do to help with their mission?
Yeah, well, I know that founders are always talking to me about, especially early stage founders are always talking to me about capital and, wrestling with who they take money from.
Yes.
And how influential that money will be. Will it be predatory? Will it not be? Will they be ousted as a CEO? And the halo, the company takes the halo and not the mission, and uses the halo, but it doesn't actually, do anything good. And Ben and Jerry's. And I think that it's like, I guess I would say to those founders, there are other options. And I think, a perpetual trust is one great option for folks. And I agree they should be very careful with the money that they take. There's also better funds. One Step Closer has a fund that helps to fund CPG companies that is more friendly and sort of slower money. there are other funds that are being formed and people are talking about in the natural food space right now that I can't talk about yet, but looking at capital that's friendlier to them. And there's also organizations like RSF that fund sort of social ventures. So there is money out there, and it does take time to look, but I think yeah, there are options out there.
Yeah, that's sorry, Caitlin, if I could jump. So
No, go ahead.
That's interesting. That's where your first thought goes to, is capital, right? Growth equals capital, right? You have to be able to reinvest in your business, and sometimes, depending on different pressures or depending on what your goals are, especially when you're environmentally focused, so you're a purpose company, right? And you're trying to like curb climate change or do something about climate change, and the urgency to do that is really pressing. Right, like we are running out of time. Like you said some stats at the top of the call, right? 1.5% or 1.5 degrees warmer, right? Biodiversity being eliminated, right? These things are real, so there is an urgency, and the way that you'd have a greater impact is to reinvest in your business. And sometimes slow organic growth is too slow, right? You just don't have enough in your P&L to really do something, maybe at the pace that you want to, with just your organic growth. I know we talked about this a little bit, but of course, Caitlin and I work and we talk a lot with people who are buying growth. Growth through buying other
you
companies.
do. Yep.
Right. So advancing your mission through cooperating with other companies, right? So how long would it take you to develop another product in house? Too long? Okay, we'll go buy somebody who's already doing that. Or you want a geographical expansion. You want to have more produce in New Mexico. Okay, well, what are the delivery chains there? What is the channels that goes through? Well, how long would it take you to develop those relationships organically? Well, you could just, not to use a pun, organically, but to go and effectively buy those relationships through acquisitions. And I think that you said that Organically Grown Company did complete an acquisition for the first time under this PPT structure, which a lot of people are worried about that too. It's like, if I do all these other things with employee ownership, can I still operate? Can I still do these acquisition type activities, or am I more locked into different business models of growth?
Oh yeah, we acquired Johansson Ranch, which is a iconic citrus ranch in Northern California. In fact, it's the northernmost citrus ranch in the U.S. and has an amazing grove of citrus trees that are legacy and been around for 50 years that produce some of the best fruit in the country. And we were able to do that. We purchased them and we just tucked them under OGC's business. But the Sustainable Food and Agricultural Perpetual Purpose Trust, SFA PPT, that owns OGC, it's a long name. Which is why I just say the trust, but they actually have capacity to add other businesses under the trust potentially. And so they could add it there. But yeah, it doesn't preclude you from doing acquisitions. And we're always thinking about where we want to grow in a way that's sensible.
Yeah, and acquisitions can be really interesting because they actually can preserve, thinking about empowering people, right? When companies fail or when they have to succeed because there's no other option, people just exit and they shutter the business, all those employees, right? So actually, John Abrams, I mentioned him again, he talked about this, that there's 3 million businesses within the next 5 to 15 years where their founder will exit, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those businesses will just shutter, and that's 32 million employees.
Yes.
We're just talking US, right?
Yes.
So it's an interesting way outside of leveraging capital, which is risky, right? Right? It is really risky. A lot of people want to bootstrap, but sometimes you can't bootstrap your way to the pace that you need in order to fulfill your vision or your values.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes you do have to take on capital to, like OGC took on capital to, buy out the ESOP and the folks that own the ESOP and to, become a Perpetual Purpose Trust. Of course, we were able to pay that back pretty rapidly, but I think, it's necessary at times. I know of several folks that have businesses that are founders that, gosh, they just need a new piece of equipment, or they need a new distribution truck or whatever that, or if I just had $1 million, I could get this Whole Foods account that really wants me to go get in there or whatever it is. But it's just a barrier. So capital is necessary in a business, and like you want good capital, you want patient capital, you want
yes,
well-meaning capital,
impact investments.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, without capital or profit, you can't make change. But yeah, no, at OGC, it's very clear that this company that you're leading right now is very solid in its mission and its identity. A very rare kind of resilience, I would say. But with this recent acquisition that you mentioned right behind you, and you're promoting your new book, Leading Through Fire, out in the world today, which is absolutely fabulous. We both loved it, like we said time and time again.
Oh,
but like, what is next for you? Like, what kind of growth are you most energized about right now, and what do you hope your book inspires other leaders to unlock?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm really hoping, like in person, are you asking personally? I mean, personally, my personal growth, I'm really, really thrilled to be helping to advance the purpose trust and alternative ownership, steward ownership models. I think that it's really an antidote to what we're seeing today, and sort of the undue influence of business, and sort of the challenges that we're seeing on every level in our country. And so to me, it's a patriotic and helpful thing to help educate people about alternatives. And so personally, I'm really excited to be doing that. And I'll also say, like, I'm thrilled to be going to Germany to a conference, the Purpose Conference there in Berlin, coming up in a couple weeks. That's going to be a really exciting event, and I'll be keynoting there and talking more about Organically Grown Company and the work that we've done in representing my coworkers there. And then in the fall, the Purpose Trust Ownership Conference is coming in Austin, or in February. Where am I? It is fall, almost. In February next year, the Purpose Trust Ownership Conference, the first of its kind, is coming to Austin. I'm really excited about that. And so those are all kind of growth areas that I'm working on, and in addition to the other daily work. And for OGC, I mean, it's really about how do we continue to be a profitable company in the face of, and we're doing well. Just get the business fundamentals, make sure we have the business fundamentals, and then how do we really continue to have that positive impact in terms of our mission, and really focusing on doing what's right in the world, and doing what's right for our coworkers, and doing what's right for our growers and our community, and the organic community. Wow. So that's what we've been really thinking about a lot. And we're entering another strategic planning cycle. So this is all, top of mind.
Speaking of that, Caitlin, I wanted to mention too. So we did this with John Abrams' book. We want to give away a copy of Brenna's book. Really, really powerful, really quick read. I think people are like reading this as they're on the airplane, or like, oh,
yeah, I did it on purpose because I'm a busy person. I wrote it like that.
Yeah, so it's really quick, but it's really, really good. You're so passionate in your writing, and it's so accessible, right, Brenna? It's like you could tell it came from your heart, right? I don't even know how long it took you, and I know you talked about this a little bit. Like, you thank your husband for supporting you through the writing process.
My poor husband, he's so wonderful. I'm so lucky.
But it seemed like it reads like this was just like a diary entry, right? It was so authentic. It's so well written. It's so accessible. There's so many parts in here that were like so cool. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that people inherently know, but the way that you talk about it is really transformative. I think you have some really powerful takeaways in here. So we'd love to give a copy to one of our listeners. So same thing we did with John's thing. So if you tag us, share this episode, and you say what you liked or what you learned from Brenna, how awesome she is, her cool hair, and her punk rock attitude.
Punk rock attitude, yeah.
To business. Then we'll pick one of you, and we'll send you a copy of Brenna's book. So we'd love to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And I wrote it just as a love letter to leaders
Yes.
out there that are really struggling, and maybe even not struggling, but just challenged by the current,
Yes.
leadership at the highest levels that has been really challenging to deal with. And this idea of how do we stay grounded and steady with ourselves in our everyday. And I like to read books in the morning. So it's written to be like you can read a chapter while
Yeah.
you're drinking your coffee in the morning, and then you can go to the next one. You don't have to read the previous one. It's like meant for busy people. That's how I wrote it on
Mm,
purpose. And I also wrote it in language that is accessible and does not, you don't have to be English as a first language to
yeah.
be able to read it.
Yeah. Amazing.
What I think is so cool too is, you're talking about how, you're so excited for all these things that are creating these macro changes, not only on like a national scale, but globally. But I actually listened to a podcast interview you did about 3 years ago, back in 2022. And on a micro level, from what you're talking about, just inspiring leaders to just be better leaders. You had spoken about how you took every Friday to mentor individuals.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if that influenced this book at all.
Oh, that's such an interesting question. Yeah. Every Friday for the last 15 years, I saved half an hour of my time before I go to work to
Mm,
mentor emerging leaders, especially women, people of color, and LGBTQ folk. And so I would save that time for them. And so I've mentored hundreds of people. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of people. And it's funny, as I got higher up in my job, less people reached out. I don't know
because
why,
they're
but
intimidated.
yeah. I'm like, what? So anyway, but I try to include
Mm,
some of that, but I think too, yeah, the mentoring and the time I've spent coaching folks influenced it because just the idea that, well, first of all, one person doesn't know everything, and I'm not
yes.
perfect, and you know, and so that was one thing I learned a lot from every single session, every single person I've talked to, I've learned something from. So I have a lot of gratitude to those folks. And then the other thing is, um, how we treat ourselves and how we are inside is reflected on the outside. And so the more we can heal ourselves and be true to ourselves, the more that will spill out into the world.
Mm.
And so I think you had read something, Caitlin, where maybe I said that I told leaders that are doing social change that they should always have a therapist. 100%. 100%.
You did say that, yep.
Yeah, because I mean, that was in 2022, but I still stand behind that because it's tough work.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to anyway. Well, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. We're going to lose time, but we don't have to take the whole world onto our shoulders.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I did when I started out in my career. Is I thought I was responsible for all of it, and I was going to make it all change. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So a lot of influences in the book, and gosh, it's just meant to transmute the energy of frustration and anger into love uh, to support people in their leadership journey.
Well, you did an absolute beautiful way of articulating that throughout the book. And it's incredibly inspiring to someone like myself, and I'm sure to Hannah as to read just something so simple but so eloquent, right?
Yeah.
To take that anger and the anxiety that this current, the economic state is bringing onto all of us right now, and how can we transfer that energy in a way that's going to be positive. I absolutely love the book, and I think it was great. But I know that, we're wrapping up on time right now. This has been a
Yeah,
fabulous
I could feel it.
conversation.
Yeah.
And but we just love at the end of every single, conversation that we have, is that we always like to spotlight a cause. And I'm sure you have many, but is there like an organization, a movement, or like an initiative that's really close to your heart that you would like our listeners to support?
Yeah, I just would like listeners to know, can I have two? Is it okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're so
First,
greedy.
I want to shout out the Perpetual Trust Ownership Network, getting started, and just supporting businesses and the work they're doing to create these perpetual trusts. So I want to shout that out. But for my punk rock side, I want to shout out to Friends of Noise in Portland. It's helping youth, especially youth of color and LGBTQ and female youth, to get involved in the music world and to grow careers there and find a sense of belonging. And I'm really excited about the work they're doing. They're opening up a new club that's underage for those kids to go and feel welcome. And you can hire their band if you have an event. You can hire a DJ from them and they'll come and DJ your party or event. So shout out to the youth.
It's called Friends of Noise?
Friends of Noise, Portland.
Dude, that's so cool.
So cool. I'm a big fan.
Do they teach kids how to unicycle at the same time while they're playing their trombone?
No, I think that's Eugene. We're in Portland. But either way, hey, it's all good. But yeah, just a shout out to the youth and the amazing work they're doing and empowering them. And the next generation of leaders are coming out of there. So really excited.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
That's great.
Well, thank you so much, Brenna. This was amazing. Really enjoyed having you on. I'm so glad I got over the hump myself of being intimidated by you.
Oh, please never. Call me anytime.
I was a little too, I'm not going to lie. But,
No.
Now we're all best friends.
Yeah, now we're besties.
Yeah.
No, don't be intimidated. Yeah, reach out anytime. Yeah, great to hang out with you, Hannah, and great to see you, Caitlin, and thank you for everything you're doing. This podcast really matters.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
so
It means
sweet
a
of
lot.
you. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Brenna, so much. This was a great conversation.